Do you remember that jaw-dropping, record-breaking $700 million contract Shohei Ohtani signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers back in December of 2023? That deal, the single largest contract in the history of professional sports? Even then, it sent shockwaves through the world, sparking endless debate about whether any baseball player could truly be worth that astronomical price. But then, the 2024 season happened. Ohtani arrived in Los Angeles and immediately started making history. He didn't just win the National League MVP award and help the Dodgers win the World Series. He became the first and only player in MLB history to achieve a 50 home run and 50 stolen base season. After all those accomplishments, many started to wonder, could that $700 million actually turn out to be a bargain for the Dodgers? Especially when we saw Juan Soto sign an even larger contract with the Mets. Soto is great, truly great, but he is not Shohei Ohtani. And Ohtani's contract, with $680 million in deferred money, also gives the Dodgers significant luxury tax relief and incredible financial flexibility down the road. Everyone thought, there's no way Ohtani's contract could possibly look any better for the Dodgers. It was already an incredible, perhaps unprecedented, team-friendly arrangement for a superstar of his magnitude. But then, new details emerged this week from Ohtani's own agent, and somehow, the Dodgers just keep looking more and more like they pulled off a heist. Can you believe this? The Dodgers were reportedly willing to offer Shohei Ohtani a contract that stretched up to 15 years during the negotiation process. Just picture that for a moment. Ohtani signed when he was 29 years old. A 15-year deal would have kept him under contract until he was 44. If calculated at the same average annual value as his 10-year deal, $70 million per year, the total value of that contract could have exceeded the colossal figure of $1 billion. Yes, over $1 billion for one baseball player. But that wasn't what was important to Shohei. That is the most stunning truth revealed this week. He actually turned down that extra money and those extra years of security. Ohtani's agent, Nez Balelo, shared at Sportico's Invest West conference, "We could have went to 13, 14, 15 years, but Shohei wanted to always kind of keep the integrity of where he's at as a player." What does that even mean? Balelo elaborated. He just didn't want to have the end of his storybook career tail off and then on year 13, 14 and 15, it's just like, who is this guy? You can't even run down first and he's not a guy anymore. The reason behind Ohtani turning down hundreds of millions of dollars? It was rooted in a fear. A fear that his skills would decline as his body aged. A fear that the later years of a monstrously long contract would tarnish his image and associate him with a player no longer performing at a level commensurate with his salary. Ohtani didn't want his incredible career to end on a sour note. A disappointing decline. He wants to maintain the image of an elite player for as long as possible. Of course, Ohtani's ability to easily turn down that extra money is partly due to his staggering off-field earnings. This year alone, endorsements are projected to bring him $100 million. With that kind of massive income outside of baseball, pure financial gain isn't his sole driving force on the field. But regardless, hearing from his agent that Ohtani deeply cares about the integrity of his player status, that he's concerned about performance tailing off in the later years of a contract, that has to be incredibly reassuring for Dodgers fans. It guarantees that Ohtani didn't just sign the contract to get paid and coast. He signed it to continue competing at the highest level, to earn every single dollar, not just for the next 10 years, but for as long as he feels he can contribute at an elite level. A powerful hitter like Ohtani can absolutely remain effective into his late 30s, the speed might diminish, but the offensive production should still be there. Music shifts to a slightly more analytical, thoughtful tone. Every large contract in professional sports comes with risk. Especially for pitchers, Ohtani is expected to return to pitching after his injury. The body is incredibly fragile. But this new detail about Ohtani turning down a potentially billion-dollar-plus contract because he didn't want to risk losing his integrity, it completely changes the perspective on the existing $700 million deal. The Dodgers didn't just sign a player with exceptional on-field talent. They signed a player with a truly unique mindset in the landscape of modern professional sports. A player whose biggest motivation isn't squeezing every last dime possible out of his career. but maintaining his elite status, his performance level, and his image as a star until the very end. In a world where long-term contracts often carry significant risk of performance decline in later years, Ohtani's contract suddenly feels surprisingly stable. The Dodgers invested in talent, in marketability, in the ability to generate massive revenue, but more importantly, they invested in a player's character and internal motivation. Music builds to a final, strong emotional hook, then fades. The story of Shohei Ohtani turning down hundreds of millions of dollars to protect the integrity of his career. It's not just news about a contract. It's a story about a person whose self-worth isn't solely measured by the money in his bank account, but by his dedication, his relentless pursuit of improvement, and his conscious desire to end his story on a high note. Perhaps, among all the staggering numbers of that $700 million contract, the most valuable thing for the Dodgers isn't the deferred money, isn't the marketability. It's that very mindset, that motivation, that deep-seated fear of ever tailing off that drives Shohei Ohtani. It's what makes their investment look more and more like a bargain, a calculated bet on a truly great individual, not just on the baseball field, but in his approach to life and his career. When Shohei Ohtani signed his unprecedented 10-year, $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers in December of 2023, it was already considered the largest in professional sports history. However, new details emerging about the negotiation process are somehow making that groundbreaking deal look even more favorable for the Dodgers. According to Ohtani's agent, Nez Balelo, speaking this week at Sportico's Invest West conference, the Dodgers actually offered Ohtani a contract that could have extended up to 15 years. A deal of that length, potentially maintaining the same average annual value, could have pushed the total value of the contract well over the $1 billion mark. However, Ohtani reportedly chose the shorter 10-year term for a very specific reason that speaks volumes about his priorities. According to Balelo, Ohtani wanted to, quote, always kind of keep the integrity of where he's at as a player. Balelo elaborated, saying Ohtani, quote, just didn't want to have the end of his storybook career tail off and then on year 13, 14 and 15, it's just like, who is this guy? You can't even run down first and he's not a guy anymore. This revelation highlights Ohtani's commitment to performing at a high level throughout the duration of his contract, even if it meant potentially leaving significant money on the table. While Ohtani also benefits from substantial endorsement income, his agent's comments suggest a strong personal desire to maintain his elite status as a player. For the Dodgers, hearing that their superstar prioritized performance integrity over maximizing the length and total value of his contract is incredibly reassuring. It reinforces the belief that their massive investment wasn't just in a marketing phenomenon, but in a player deeply committed to excellence on the field for years to come. The combination of the strategic deferred money in the current deal and Ohtani's focus on maintaining his playing ability is making this historic contract look even better for the Los Angeles Dodgers.